Everybody has a story of how things became what it is.
And all of the stories that we're experiencing up to date are all based on the original mythological story.
Myths are ways of codifying profound truths.
And so in order to pass on the knowledge of these things, our ancestors began to put them in the form of stories.
Because myth becomes a way of speaking to that.
And it's all considered to be mythology because it is based on a belief.
And then we create rituals that reinforces the logic and the knowledge of the myth.
The story then goes into a ceremony that is constantly going to remind people.
That's where the rituals come in, where we begin to practice this, what they call Ausarian Drama.
This story, this African story of an African trinity, is over 6,000 years old.
There's several different pieces of that story that are in direct correlation to the story of Jesus.
Scholars know this. Why do they allow people keep thinking it's a religion unless they have an untoward agenda? And it's very clear that they've created a lot of confusion.
Contentious and long, a lengthy meeting that saw roughly 80 or so people speak during public comment alone. What's clear, this community remains divided on how the district is teaching diversity, equity, and inclusion. With signs held high, a group of protesters brought together by the Oakland County Republican Party made it clear that they don't appreciate the controversial approach to teaching equity in Farmington Hills.
At some point, we have to say enough is enough, and let's stop the indoctrination and let kids actually learn the things they're meant to learn.
Specifically, a 21-day challenge which the district posted online. One such challenge surrounded the Black Lives Matter protest as a method of education.
I believe the intent of the challenge was equality, but I think it did exactly the opposite.
The topic spilled into the Board of Education meeting as well, when the committee dedicated to equity gave their findings.
And I hope that as we continue this work, that remains the priority, that all children are receiving a quality education.
And it continued during public comment.
Especially the Farmington Hills and Farmington parents and West Bloomfield parents want to be heard. They want a seat at the table, not just constantly excluded for one political side or another.
Schools are places of learning, and I can think of no more appropriate place to teach critical thinking.
We need to stop looking at people based on the color of their skin, but the color of their soul.
I want to tell you, as a black man in America, every day is a challenge for me.
As for where the board stands on the issue, both the superintendent and board president are united.
It never was intended to stand alone because absent the context and the dialogue, individual pieces could be misinterpreted.
The Board of Education wants to promote adult behaviors that support a culture of equity and innovation because FPS has a vision for high achievement for all of its students.
And despite the protests today and a vocal opposition, the school board says they remain committed to this program and have no plans to change in the future. Reporting live in Farmington Hills, Dave Spencer, Fox 2 News.
Well, Dave, a pretty packed house tonight. What prompted this method of teaching equity?
Yeah, this started back in the spring. It's kind of been a nationwide movement, but here in Farmington Hills, they had an equity audit and they figured this was the best way to address it. They say that came after a student-led BLM demonstration as well. So all of that factoring into it, and they said that they know that this is kind of the cutting edge in terms of how things are being taught in Oakland County. They don't mind it. They like being there, and they plan to stay there.
Plan had parents and local political groups protesting tonight. Plan had parents and local political groups protesting tonight.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Wow. Hopefully you got a real eye-opener to some of the events from this week. I am your host, Tia Marie Sanders, and I am happy to see you all here this morning. Some of you stayed up with me late last night, so thank you for joining me back again this morning. Um, what we're going to talk about today is a little bit of what you saw in the video in terms of the CRT battle most of you saw on the news this past week. When thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion in your schools, as well as in your community, I just want to talk a little bit about what is going on. We have about an hour, so please feel free to put your comments in the chat. We will be reviewing those throughout. And I also will be inviting you to another event that we will be having tomorrow, which will be around and related to family. Yes, I do agree. So I already have Diana in the chat with us. You are correct. It was not accurate. Luckily, there were other news outlets that were there. First of all, as many of you know, CRT is not being taught in elementary schools, high schools, or middle schools. I cannot stress that enough. But I don't think that they think it is. I honestly believe that the reason why they have co opted even the terminology diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the co opted the movement to bring in more diverse materials is because they do feel under threat. Right now, every school across America, after seeing where the injustices lie inside of schools and other institutions, as well as they have seen with data, facts, where the disparities add up for people of color. And so, right now, what tends to happen is just like every other movement, it gets co opted. When you are seeing debates about CRT and what it is and what it isn't, it's usually revolving around what it isn't. And unfortunately, our media has been a perpetuant of that false information. Instead of starting the report and saying, this is someone's view, although here is what the facts are, add the fact check right after the statement so that people will see that that person is discredited from either not understanding the right information and certainly not sharing the right information. So, what does this mean? So first of all, I do want to credit community equity organization out of Farmington Hills for helping to make people aware, provide the information, and set reminders for people to come out. That is going to be the crucial fight that we have. These things go unchallenged. The people that put out information that are not facts often go unchallenged. The board cannot make a statement, as you guys saw, while people are making these comments. They cannot answer while people are making these comments. So it is really crucial that the other voices that do have the correct information are present in these spaces. And like Diana said, we posted, let's see, the community is clearly divided, not the impression I got watching. That is true, as most of the people who were there did not truly either understand what the diversity equity challenge was. So just to set the record straight, that challenge was actually crafted by United Way, and United Way shared that information and actually encouraged others to do the same thing, to figure out what an equity challenge would look like in their community or even leverage the one that they had created. That equity challenge was created to provoke thought, to provoke conversations, and to provoke critical thinking. It is in no way an indoctrination. It was in no way forcing a form of thought. It was a way to engage people in a space when the entire globe was activated in order to do something or respond to what had just happened with George Floyd. Most people kind of, for the first time ever, became alerted that something was different or something was not right in the Black community in particular, as well as what was going on related to police and police brutality. Um, and so this co-opt of a movement and this co-op of people wanting to see change and wanting to move in a new direction, unfortunately has derailed the real point of what that work is. So one of the ways in which I would like for us as citizens who care, citizens who want to see something different, and citizens who do want to work together with our neighbors in order to promote the very thing that we say we believe in, which is equity for our neighbors, equity for those who have not, um, who have been overlooked or marginalized. And we don't have to go out and guess or wonder if that is true or not. If you are willing to check your Michigan Board of Education, they keep extensive records and data for the last almost 60 years over how your either local government and school have been operating around education and which students are being served and which students are not. And they also put out several reports that talk about how that is actually aggregated out. And for almost 6 decades, do you hear me? For 6 decades, in particular, the Michigan Board of Education has found that the education of African American students in Michigan, and I'm only going to do Michigan because I don't actually reach out other than the federal um, Board of Education to actually check what they're doing nationally, but I'm just going to center right now Michigan. The Board of Education here in Michigan has tracked that African American students have been part of an achievement gap in terms of where they are compared to where all other students are in their ability to be successful in a school environment, in a Michigan school environment. For the last 60 years, our children have not done as well as all of their other counterparts. A few years back, when the special education departments of many of these schools were also in that same space, they started to invest financial resources. They started to invest in hiring new teachers who had specialty and who had experience in this area. They started to craft new curriculum, and they started to figure out what was it that students who had special needs, what did they need in order to reach the same level of achievement as their counterparts. When the Board of Education in Michigan made that effort, now a 30% increase just over the last decade, the students who have special needs or who need additional services have been able to see advancements of 30% increase in their achievement over that time. And what we are asking for as the African American community is to have that same kind of investment. In this past year, the ESSER funds, and you guys can look up the ESSER funds, we don't have time to dig into the ESSER funds, but schools have received additional funding to help with students who have experienced any lag in their ability to learn over these last 2 years dealing with COVID. Just like the federal government made that financial commitment specifically to kids who may have had some lag that would cause their achievement to be less than what is expected, the federal government has made a commitment. So therefore, the state of Michigan has made a commitment. In most of your school districts, you can look on on the Michigan Board of Education's website where they actually tell you line by line, school by school, who received these funds and how and what those funds are used for. For example, in Novi, where I am, there's a commitment of $26,000 in this year in the Novi School District for the achievement gap for students who have been lagging behind. Is it enough? I don't know. It's the first time I've ever seen any funds actually specifically allotted for that. Most school districts have not done what Farmington has done, which is to take a concerted stand to make sure that there is an intentional action around diversity, equity, and inclusion. The reason why there needs to be intentional action is because one, our students have asked for this. Two, our parents have asked for this for decades. It is only today and only now that a school district like Farmington is responding to that call. Right now, all of these other distractions and all of these other misinformation campaigns do nothing to serve the very thing that parents have asked for and that students have asked for. At the Farmington Hills meeting, there was a few students that actually spoke about their actual experience. And they talked about how racism is something that they feel on a daily basis in their schools. And if we don't have a plan for how we're going to address that, we have then told a student like that young lady, you know what? I don't hear you. I don't want to help you. And I'm saying that we actually, as a community, can tell that young lady, we're here for you and we can help you. We are actually now putting together the very foundation that will be necessary so that when you walk through your halls, when you go into your classrooms, not only do you see yourself represented, but you're actually being educated on the truth and you're actually being educated in a way that is representative of your experience. Now, why the other side would not want that, the only thing I can imagine is that they know the power in that kind of education. Many of you out there watching have been, over the last 18 months, learning about the disparities that are in your community as well as in your nation. And most of you have shared, at least with me, that you are shocked that this is the case, that you were not aware that these disparities took place, and you did not understand the origin story of those displacements. Now that information is coming out, the truth is coming out, and so now, let's see, I am going to do something here. Give me just a moment. Just one moment, guys. I'm just going to check with my producer. Let me just check one thing. Okay. So, let's see. I believe some of your chats are coming in. Let me just check one thing. I do apologize. This is called struggle streaming. Okay. All right. Thank you, producer. And I want to thank my producer for all of her help. Thank you so much, Raw Asset. Okay. So as we are learning about CRT, as we are learning what it isn't, because that's really what I want to focus on, learning what CRT isn't, and then actually learning what is happening in your school district. What can you do about it? So if you have students, it doesn't matter if you have them from K through 12, you are a citizen of that community, whether you have kids in that school district or not. Your taxes, when you pay for your home, your taxes go into supporting that school district. So the first thing I would encourage all of you to do is to find out what your school district has on their agenda. So every week, your school districts are required to post the agenda a couple days before, or at least ahead of the actual school board meeting. It'll give you an opportunity to read over what that agenda is, what are the topics that are going to be discussed, what things are going to be voted on, and how funds are going to be allocated. The curriculum for the state of Michigan is actually handed down, and that was also revealed. It was handed to your local school district by the Michigan School Board, where a lot of really highly educated folks sit around for not a year, sometimes 2 or 3 years, devising what that curriculum will be. If you would like to see that curriculum change, it is at that level, the state level, that you would want to put in your inquiry. The other thing is that you want to get familiar with the Michigan board, because they also are the ones that hand out whatever new mandates will be taking place within your district. You also need to know that when you go to a school district meeting, you are going to be asked to fill out a comment card if you hope to speak during the open comment. During the open comment, the board members are not able to respond or to comment or answer questions. Your public statement is not part of a dialogue. Your public statement is just that you are making your thoughts and feelings and ideas known in a respectful manner to follow the decorum of that school board. You usually get whatever allotted time. Some school districts are doing 2 minutes, some are doing 3 minutes. I've seen as many as 5 minutes. In that time, you do need to make your points concise. Make sure that you are addressing the board, not by name, but by one body. And you are required to end your statement on time. They will keep a timer. They will usually give you a 30-second notice to the fact that you have only about 30 seconds left to make whatever final parts of your comment that you would like to make. I encourage you to do so by having an already prepared statement if you're not really comfortable speaking on the fly. It's just better to keep you on track, keep you on time, and to make sure that your points are being made, but you are able to speak to your board. This is extremely important and effective if you are able to devise a strategy with yourself and other members of your community who have the same or similar thoughts that you have about a particular subject, and to sort of work together ahead of time to devise what your shared front will be to let the board know that you are either in support or in opposition to their position on a particular topic. As it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion, what I would recommend if you are new to this is to do your homework. You do need to know what your board has already committed to doing, as well as what they're committing to do going forward. You also, if you cannot attend one of these board meetings, you are able to submit a letter at any time to the entire board that then becomes part of the board packet. Why that is important is because every board member will get that ahead of time and they will be able to review your thoughts even if you cannot be present at the meeting. I encourage you to do this for all of the meetings if you're able to get the packet ahead of time because, let's see, yes, the parents can find the meetings. Thank you, Black Media Voice. Parents can find out about their local school board meetings through the school district's website. There should be a section on the school board's website that tells you when board meetings are taking place. They usually do the calendar for the entire year, so you can really know almost a year in advance when your school board meetings are going to be, but still watch those because they sometimes have to make a change due to weather or power outages. There are other things that do come up that may cause a change. So subscribe to any calendars that your school has or that your board has so that you can stay on track for what is available and when those meetings are taking place. Some meetings last 45 minutes. Some can last, as we saw the other night, almost 5 hours. If you are dealing with a very let's say, controversial or an issue that people feel really passionate about, that will usually spur on longer public comments, which will make the meeting go longer. The average meeting without long public comments is usually about 45 minutes to 90 minutes long. While the board does their board business. They may hear from teachers, they may hear from other board members, they may also talk about what's happening in the district or what needs to be voted on in the district or what funds are being allocated. So please visit your local website to find out when your board meetings are happening. I do suggest that you are putting people in your community around a particular issue together. Everyone cannot be at every meeting every week, but someone from your group should be so that even if other people, other parents could not be there, that someone is there to share what happened. Sometimes these things are recorded. Most of the time, I'll say maybe 95% of the time they're recorded, and that recording is then posted after the fact so that you can review if you were not there, make sure you review the video so that you can be on top of what was happening and what was being said. What happened with this Farmington meeting is that a lot of the folks who had opposing ideas about DEI actually taking place, that they got ahead of Farmington in a way and started to uh, kind of take over the narrative and put out things that were not true about the 21-day equity challenge and about the purpose of the 21-day equity challenge and its impact. And so, luckily, because parents were watching the meeting after the fact and getting the packets, parents in Farmington mobilized to be ahead of it this time and to be able to balance out those untruths with what the truth was. There were teachers who spoke about what's actually happening in the school district, as well as students who spoke about their experience. So anytime there's an opportunity to have that information go out, please, be willing to share it. The other thing that I would ask parents to do is to work with the school district. Most of them are usually in a position to in a position to help you with what works best for their curriculum. Um, there are usually, let me just see if I can find it. Hold on, let me just see if I can find it. And I do want to just let everyone know, in this space, we try to respect each other. In this space, we don't use poor language. And in this space, we don't disrespect each other. So if you do that, I will cancel you out. I will remove you from the room because this is not what that space is for. So thank you. And my producer will make sure that you are no longer invited into this space. Anyway, let me go back to what I was saying. One of the things that you can do is work with your school district, find out what they are planning to do, and if you have suggestions, if you have ideas about how they can better serve your children and the children in the community, there's usually an open space to do so. If you want to be able to talk to your superintendent, it's simply contacting their secretary. If you want to talk to your school principal, contact their secretary, make an appointment, and let them know a little bit about what you want to come and talk to them about. And in doing so, be again prepared to have really thoughtful conversations or be able to ask questions. Some of you may want to ask questions about what is being taught. Maybe you need more context, and that's fine. I don't have any principals that I've ever come across where that open door was not available, as long as it's being respected of their time because they are school leaders, as well as making sure that your points are heard from a place of information, facts, and education. If that is not the case, you will find it much harder to meet with school leaders in terms of a space that is collaborative and one in which you can grow. Some schools also have curriculum meetings that are open to the public where they open it up to discuss what curriculums are working, which ones are not, and what needs to be added. There's also on your school calendar information about when those meetings are happening. So I advise you to take advantage of that as well, because those are the moments that any curriculum that you are not sure about, or any curriculum that you think is maybe not as impactful, the time to have those conversations are during those meetings, not once a curriculum has been passed and agreed upon and funded and budgeted for. It's much harder after the fact. So the schools love the involvement and the engagement of all of their parents. And so there are protocols to follow. And if you are following those, you will find that you will have the cooperation of your school leadership. I've been in my city for over 16, going on 17 years, and I have been very fortunate to be able to work with and share my thoughts, as well as my support and my time to those school leaders who have valued the input from the community. And I've been very lucky to have that open dialogue. Do we always agree? Absolutely not. But we are always respectful to each other. We always create opportunities to learn from each other, as well as work together, because we do want the same outcomes, which is for our children to leave these spaces that they attend school in, and as they grow up, go on to be citizens who are impactful in the world and who have a successful career as well as a healthy outlook on their mental, social, and emotional well-being. And as long as we all keep that as our goal, I think we will be completely successful. So I am at the halfway mark. So thank you all for joining me so far. Thank you for your comments in the comment section. If you do have questions, please feel free to put them in the comment section. I'll look over just for a moment at a few questions or statements to see where we are and see if anybody has any questions. Let me just get my spectacles on. Guys, I have new glasses coming. I'm so happy. I was so excited to see that little text that they sent me that said that my new glasses were ready. So you guys are going to hopefully see those coming up soon. All right. So let me just go back. Thank you to Diana for watching. Let's see. Thank you to a few folks. Thank you to my family for watching. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Always, I am so lucky to have an awesome family, you guys. They are always very supportive. You've probably seen some of my siblings on different channels, as well as one of my daughters. So thank you all for your support. All right. So I think I answered all of the questions. Let's see here so far. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Um, the other thing that I will share with you all is what your role can be in terms of helping to support not only my organization, which you will see my information down in the bottom, my Cash app, as well as how you can get in touch with us, follow, ask questions, contact me. We are on YouTube. We're also on Instagram and on Facebook. And so please feel free to reach out to us if you have topics that you feel like we should be covering, or if you would like to alert me to something that is happening in your community. I am not in all spaces. I happen to be in Oakland County, Michigan, most of the time at the schools in our area, but I'm eager to hear what's happening in your area so that we can support you. There are many organizations that I would like to highlight that you can join or be a part of to help the work that they have started. They are always open to having more engagement. Community Equity Organization in Farmington Hills, as well as Danica Community initiatives in Farmington. There are also the African American Parent Network of Oakland County. Not every city has an African American Parent Network, so check with your school district. If there is one, they've usually partnered with the school. So if you happen to be an African American family and you're looking for who can support you, reach out to your local school district and let them know that you are interested in finding that group so that you can be matched up with them. Thank you, Diana. Diana said, your info is very good. Lots of details and background on how to get involved effectively. Thanks. Thank you, Diana, for joining us. And please feel free to share this video and also our other content. But yes, you can join your African American Parent Network in your city. If there isn't one and you are interested to join and to start one, please reach out to me. I was able to join our African American Parent Network here in my city back in 2006. And it has been an amazing experience. When my children were going to school, it just really felt good to be supported. Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So that's a really good friend. Hello, Miss Turner. Ms. Turner says, thanks for all you do in support of our community. Thank you. It does not happen without people like you who have had a voice and stood up and spoken in support of the work that is being done. This does not happen by one person, you all. That is the other thing I would like to stress to you. In order for you to see your school look like the diverse community that you know it can be, that you know it has the potential, given the right support and input, this is only going to be successful if we work together. I promise you, the other side is working diligently and putting finances in place in order to ensure that their viewpoints come across. And the problem with that we don't have a very good, strong counter to that. If you've ever heard of the term, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, When their presence and their voices are the loudest and are the most active, then the initiatives that they would like to see push forward tend to come forward, even though they are maybe not the most favorable. They the school boards and your city officials, any board that makes decisions about how the funding that they have will impact your family or your children, um, are boards and spaces in which we all need to have a voice. And I get it, not everybody is able to go to a school board meeting, not because you have other obligations. So write a letter. Not everybody is able to show up at every single meeting. So pick who in your neighborhood is going to go and figure out the next 2 months of who will be able to go and then rotate that rotation. We here in my city have been able to share some of that space, but letting the school board know that you are a parent who is watching, you're a parent who is engaged, goes a very long way to ensuring that your children are getting what they need and the support that they need. I will be doing more videos on exactly how to advocate for your children in these spaces and for yourself as a citizen. I will be doing exercises and trainings on how to mobilize people in your community. Again, this is not work that I expect people to just wake up one day and to do this work. It is very difficult work. That is why the people who you see on those front lines really do need your support. I'm going to read another comment I have from Ra Asset. Thank you. You need more people like you. Protect Tia Marie at all costs. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. Yes, we do actually need cover. I don't know if you guys know, but at the Farmington School Board meeting, they were receiving so many threats. And people, just because they had put out a 21-day equity challenge, that they so strongly wanted to stop equity in that community, that they were actually threatening the lives of school board members. So we really do have to stand together, work together, and support each other and provide each other cover. And I don't mean physical cover, I mean the cover that says, we believe in what you're doing. We want you to keep doing what you're doing, and we support what you're doing and making these changes in our district. And so we think that this is going to be the way that we actually see this future. That I know Martin Luther King's Day is coming up on Monday. The future that he envisioned. The one thing. Oh, let me read this comment real quick. I thought the idea in FHS of passing out Purple Hearts was effective. That should have made the news. You are very right. This space is one that is collaborative, one that's done out of love for our children, love for the future that we believe our children can have. And yes, when we all stand in solidarity that, um, around that idea that this is a space that is respectful and that we're going to show love. And the way we show love as a community is by ensuring that everyone in our community has the ability to thrive. And I don't understand what the counter message is to wanting people to thrive. So you are correct, Diana. It actually was a very, very good feeling to see that the majority of the people that were at that event were in solidarity, that we are in support of our children. It is so key. Black Media Voice, thank you, is actually just making a comment that someone was threatening us just a few minutes ago. Absolutely. This is where we have to stand in the face of that and why we need the support of others. Again, I don't expect everyone to be on the front lines because it's not even feasible, but I do hope and I do encourage people to support those leaders that are in your community that are doing this work, either in writing. You can also make a phone call to your local leaders in terms of school or your city council. You can also post things on Facebook where people are aware of what's going on in your community, letting people know. The young people are really good about posting things on Instagram. I'm learning Instagram, and learning, just how our young people are communicating. But if you notice that, I believe it was West Bloomfield, they had a walkout with their students. That was organized by the students communicating through social media to share what was going on in their district. And what they got was overwhelming support from the other school districts and other students. So it really does help to affect change by letting people know what is going on. So we have another comment from Diana. Would love a link to get alerts for calls for allies to post if you have one. Oh, yes. So you can certainly reach out to me. My number should be coming up in the chat as well as on the screen. You can also reach out to me on Facebook. You can direct message me if you feel more comfortable, or you can also email me at tmsanders48375@gmail.com. Please feel free to reach out to me. We are going to hopefully, depending on what city you're in, will connect you with the groups that are being effective in your community. So if you're in Novi, for example, the Novi Racial Awareness, Accountability, and Action Group, which I'm helped to spearhead in a co-effort with a few other ladies in our community, uh, is available. There are groups in Troy as well as all the way up in the Oxford area. And as I mentioned before, the African American Parent Network of Oakland County is also on Facebook. It is the OAAPN that you will hopefully be able to find online to reach out to support the efforts. The other thing I was going to say is that many of the policies and the efforts and the education and the work behind getting policies to change, because this, as you all have heard me say before, racism, the impacts of racism show up in a tangible way through policy, profit, and property. Policy, profit, and policy are the three ways in which politics are, the way in which racist ideology and racist activity tend to impact or harm marginalized communities the most. I wish it was just hearts and minds, but that is not the case. Someone not liking a person because of the color of their skin is very little impact, as opposed to them voting against a policy or voting for a policy that can harm that particular community for years to come, in some cases, decades to come. As we watch through the civil rights movement, and if we take that look back, many of the policies that our grandmothers and grandfathers fought for, marched for, and even died for are on the chopping block. The powers that be, who have the most money and the most power, are really targeting the very foundation of what we have come to know over the last 60 years. And just like our grandmothers and our grandfathers who fought so diligently in order to ensure that our portion of this future looks the way that it does, we have the same task and charge on our citizenship to do the same thing, because there is in 60 years a young man and a young woman who are not going to be able to enjoy what we have come today to understand because of the policies and practices and laws that are being put into place today that are meant to harm us today as well as our future generations. And I take this very seriously. My portion and my job in this space, I take it extremely seriously. The reason I do is because I know that I will not be on this earth for a very long time. In 60 years, in 100 years, I want our children, my grandchildren, my great grandchildren, to have this be a relic of the past. The only way that I can ensure that these policies that have harmed us financially and emotionally, has caused trauma in our community, has caused us to be disconnected from the right health services, the right education, the right employment opportunities, and the right entrepreneurship opportunities, and the strong community opportunities, is to do my portion today. And I cannot do that alone. I do need you. I do want you on my team. And I need people mobilized in all communities to ensure that this is what's happening and that it's happening in a way that is helpful for our students. Our students, in many cases, have already spoken. If you look back over the last 2 years, most of our students have already spoken at our school board meetings. They've written letters. They've talked about what they would like to see in their schools. And not just students who are brown or black, there have been Caucasian students who have said they've seen the racism too. They're aware of it. They want to see something different. Our teachers have said, I have longed for the day that we could have these conversations and have these critical thought processes where kids develop what their ideas are around these interests and around these points so that they can be effective in these ways as they look at what their future looks like. They are aware that their job outlook is completely dismal. They know that their housing options when they grow up and decide to buy a home, that redlining is still affecting the way in which our children are able to buy a home. They also realize the struggles that their parents have gone through, and they want to see something different. One of the things that I realized with my own daughters is that this fight was not happening when I chose to take to the streets. This fight was not something I was doing alone. It affected my family, it affected my children, and I've been very grateful that they have supported and guided me in what they saw that was missing in the school space so that I could be more supportive to them. So have these conversations with your children. What's happening in their schools is not a silo of something that's happening to them that you should not be discussing with them. Most of your children have experienced at some point, either by watching it or having it be targeted to them directly, some space that was not equitable. Some of the students have watched their teachers have inequitable experiences. So these are conversations that we need to start having within our kitchen tables as we talk about what our children's futures look like. It is great to encourage them to go into post-secondary options. It is great to tell them that they have your support. But if we aren't helping our children to have a good experience today, it will affect their experience going forward. And I don't want your children to go through what my children had to go through when they experienced racism in their school. They don't deserve that. They deserve a clear path, an open path, and a path that encourages them to thrive and is supportive of who they are, supportive of where they come from, supportive of who they hope to show up as in our community. And I do believe that when we start attacking those things that have harmed our community, which is dismantling racism, white supremacy, and replacing it with a system of justice for all, then we will begin to see the changes that we want in the wage gap for women in the workplace. We will see that the other marginalized groups, special needs, people who are not as advantaged, people who are coming into the country and wanting the same opportunities, we will start to see that as we dismantle racism, if we focus on dismantling racism, all of those other isms start to fade away because we are actually, for the first time in history of this country, dealing with the thing that ensures that racism continues. The other side that opposes equity understands the power of equity. That is why they are afraid. That is why they will go to at all costs and invest all kinds of money in order to stop equity. It is the same machine that has been used in the past to marginalize groups. It is how Jim Crow came about. It is how the wage gap came about. It is what the foundation is to a life where people can thrive. And I fully believe that there are more of us who want to see this community change than there are of us who don't. That is my belief. And if you believe in that as well, please support the work that I am doing and also look for the leaders in your community who could use your support as well. One of the battles that we all face is having that community engagement where we are looking for people to support and to help make change. And I would like to see it happen from the other way around, that people who want these things to be different, seek out those groups in your community, support them financially. It is not easy. They put out, there's marketing materials that go out to make you aware aware of what's going on. There is time being invested in creating new bills and new policies to counter things like CRT. Right now, we have two bills in the state of Michigan, and I do want you guys to go and look up. There are two CRT bills. The unfortunate thing is that they have both passed in the House. The Senate will be looking at them. We hope that our governor does not let these come into law, but you need to make your wishes known to the governor, to your school district, to those policymakers in the state of Michigan that you support the schools in their agenda to move equity forward, to make sure that equity, which really I know we say equity a lot. Equity, the word equity means the equal distribution of resources to everyone. Those that need it more, those that don't need it as much, that we are balancing out how we're distributing equity. We're looking at where the highest and the loudest and the most need is and addressing those needs first, and then going through the path of finding out where those disparities show up across all industries, across all education, in order to make sure that no child is showing up at school without everything they need. One of my dear friends, Danielle Ware, mentioned that, all of these grassroots organizations are actually funding food and funding school supplies. That's actually not the community's job. We have infrastructures in place, policies in place that say that the students that show up at school are supposed to have all of the resources they need. But many of our teachers have to dig very deep in their own pockets on low salaries as it is, overworked, underappreciated, and still come out of pocket to be able to support those students who don't have enough resources at home. Well, instead of us doing another backpack drive, I would like if over this year, 2022, we look at what does it take to make sure that those families are not living in inadequate situations, even though both parents might be working, that they would still find themselves short to buy a very simple product like school supplies. And the reason why that is because we know that one thing begets another. If a parent is making a lower wage, particularly a mother, because she happens to be a female in her workspace, then that cuts into her ability to provide those very basic necessities. Fathers out there should also be concerned. If your daughters and your sisters and your mothers and your wives are being taxed more and paid less, that affects your bottom line in your household. You should be angry about that, angry enough to motivate you to stand with women who are working on the wage gap. There's an organization called the American Association of University Women, the AAUW, that is a global organization that is working diligently to change policies around the wage gap. Unfortunately, though, they stand in that space often just being women who believe that this is a problem when men should be joining that fight as well, because this affects your bottom line as well. So I do want to say thank you to some of the people that have joined the chat today. Thank you for spending this hour with me. We're going to get a little sharper and try to keep the shows to an hour. So I thank you all. For joining me. Hopefully today you found some of this information helpful. There's more that I'm sure we can talk about in another segment. Please feel free to reach out to me. Again, my contact information is below. I'm going to read a couple of the comments that are over here. Let's see. Okay. Civics and Politics is this show content, advocacy for teaching people how to advocate for themselves, their children, to advocate for policies in their community. I'm hoping that we will be able to get into it on Saturday mornings. Thank you. I had my ginger lemon tea right next to me. So bring your tea. Or your shake in the morning that you like to drink for getting your morning started. Please look for a few organizations that I'll be posting on my Facebook of how you can get involved. If you are a young lady in the Novi area, there is a group called Style, which is Sisters Teaching Young Ladies Excellence that I'm a part of. It is led by Tracy Stevenson and Tony Burgess, and a lot of really amazing young ladies who are in our community who are passionate about this work, are in the process of devising some curriculums. We could use some support and some help. There's also a Facebook page if you would like to financially donate. I do want to encourage you to find those grassroots organizations. There is a myth that a lot of the funds that the larger organizations like United Way get trickle down to our organizations. That is a myth. Those funds barely, if ever, reach these grassroots levels. Most of the reason why is because those grassroots groups are mom and pop. They were spurred on by parent groups or out of a need in the community, and they just got to work. They didn't necessarily put together an action plan or a business plan. And so they need your financial support to do the work that they're doing. They also need your time, talent, and treasure if you're able to support in that way by lending your designer skills or your media skills, or your organizing or business plan skills. So there are so many ways in which we as citizens can show up for each other. I just want us to do it in a more tangible, mindful way around the equity work that needs to happen and to show up in a unique way, so that we combat those voices that don't speak the truth. And we combat those by doing the action that's necessary. I'm not really concerned that they continue to spew lies. What I am concerned about is that those lies turn into the action that they're willing to put in that actually affect policy, profit, and property in our communities. And by the time we find out, it's usually too late. So encouraging all of you to get involved now, support those that in your community that need your help, and to continue to come back to my channel so that you can learn more about this space and contact me so that I can answer any questions that you have. I want to thank my producer from Black Media Voice for supporting me in this channel and helping me with production so that you all get to see this content. Please feel free again to look down at the bottom. My telephone number where you can reach me is 248-325-8093. You can also reach me on Gmail at tmsanders48375@gmail.com. I also have a Cash App that if you would like to donate, there is a link in the chat. And I appreciate those of you who have already donated. I was really just overwhelmed and just I'm about to like tear up. I'm so grateful that those of you who have already donated, not only for the fact that it shows that you believe in this work, but that you would trust me as a leader in the community to do that work, and that you believe in my ability to do that work. So I believe me, your donations are not taken lightly. I am overwhelmed and moved by your support. So thank you. I also want you all to sign up. I'm in the process. I haven't officially launched, but to donate to the Tia Marie Sanders Foundation at gmail.com to get more information. So thank you. Thanks for joining me this morning. I do pray and hope that you and your families have a wonderful day. Oh, and speaking of prayer, I just want to send a shout out. My pastor, Pastor Roselle White, today is his birthday as well, but it's also our 5-year anniversary of Life Changing Ministries Church in Novi. So if you guys can go over to Roselle White and tell him that Tia Marie told you to say happy birthday, I'm sure he would love being flooded with encouragement and comments. He's created a path for us to show up in the community as church members, that is the actual work of the church. And so I'm really grateful for his support. Him and his wife, Stacy White as well, have also been very supportive. So I thank you all. I love you all. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow. We will be talking about some things that our families can do so that we can be strong families and strong community. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.
Everybody has a story of how things became what it is.
And all of the stories that we're experiencing up to date are all based on the original mythological story.
Myths are ways of codifying profound truths.
And so in order to pass on the knowledge of these things, our ancestors began to put them in the form of stories.
Because myth becomes a way of speaking to that.
And it's all considered to be mythology because it is based on a belief.
And then we create rituals that reinforces the logic and the knowledge of the myth.
The story then goes into a ceremony that is constantly going to remind people.
That's where the rituals come in, where we begin to practice this, what they call Ausarian Drama.
This story, this African story of an African trinity, is over 6,000 years old.
There's several different pieces of that story that are in direct correlation to the story of Jesus.
Scholars know this. Why do they allow people keep thinking it's a religion unless they have an untoward agenda? And it's very clear that they've created a lot of confusion